What's good, everyone? Gamer Critic here. Guardians of the Galaxy was a really underrated game. So you guys remember Guardians of the Galaxy, right? That superhero action game that came out back in 2021. I'll tell you, I certainly do. I remember playing it back in 2021 and absolutely loved what I played at the time. But then I thought about it. I realized I haven't touched that game since I put it down in 2021. So I decided, why not? Got some time to kill. I re-downloaded it on my Xbox Series S and finally played through it a second time. And yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy still holds up incredibly well. Guardians of the Galaxy is just a constant reminder that we need every few years. The type of game to remind the big higher-ups in the game studios that despite what you might think, single-player story-driven adventures are not and will never die. Guardians of the Galaxy came 1 year after the devastating release that was Marvel's Avengers. I'll never forget the sheer levels of disappointment that game provided to me. It's a game that by all accounts should have succeeded, especially since it was at a point when the MCU was at its absolute peak. But then, I'm not sure who, Square, Crystal Dynamics, I don't know, but someone made the stupid choice to make Marvel's Avengers a live service game. So that means monetization, always online, all the other garbage that comes with these type of titles. Marvel's Avengers did it, and it absolutely sucked. And it really is disappointing because the single-player story itself was actually pretty solid. I mean, the combat wasn't too great, but the story was enjoyable enough, voice acted well enough, and it definitely could have helped the game if it was designed to be the main focus, which obviously it wasn't. And I'm really focusing on Avengers right now because after being severely burned by Marvel's Avengers at the time, I never would have guessed that everything I would have wanted Avengers to be was really given in Guardians of the Galaxy. No, seriously, I really never would have guessed. I mean, look, I don't know if it was the game itself or my hate goggles from Avengers blinding me, but the trailers for Guardians of the Galaxy did not do it justice. But then the game dropped, it got stellar reviews, I played it, and it became genuinely one of the best surprises I have gotten in this industry. Okay, now let me be clear. Surprise game does not mean best game. Guardians of the Galaxy objectively is extremely far from perfect. Guardians of the Galaxy toys around with a lot of ideas that on paper could have worked, but in game are just kinda meh. And the first one that comes to mind is a fairly useless crafting system. That even when I first played it, it made me think that if anything didn't need to be here, it's this. It's not really that it's bad per se, more it's just kind of not needed. There's a level up system that you can use to buy some new and more powerful attacks, so it doesn't make a lot of sense that you have to make your way around these linear levels to find these pieces of scrap that, let's be honest, were barely used in the end. And they were barely used because they had no real urgency. The changes given from crafting felt insignificant at the end of the day, and it didn't really motivate me to want to use the system, making it pretty useless. Another gameplay design that doesn't really work is combat. Well, to be clear, certain aspects of combat, particularly the Huddle System. It genuinely kind of sucks that one of the most fun mechanics in the game is simultaneously one of the most undercooked and frankly unnecessary. Now, I'll say this, the aftermath of these huddles were great. Like, who wouldn't enjoy blasting a monster as Since You've Been Gone by Rainbow is playing in the background? It is indeed as badass as it sounds. But the actual mechanic to get there, I have to be honest, is pretty whack. It puts a complete pause on the combat to give you a choice between dialogue options that really are so blatantly obvious on which is right and which is wrong. You would have to actively choose the wrong answer to even have a chance of picking the wrong answer. And even if you choose the wrong answer, you still get a very handy boost in combat, so why even bother with it at all? I mean, it's a great idea in concept, just not fully realized like a handful of other gameplay choices in Guardians of the Galaxy. Great in concept, but rough around the edges. Even the combat, while certainly fun to break up the story bits and cutscenes, is still a little rough. Like, sometimes the hit detection can be off, the melee combat feels pretty weightless, and honestly, it's just pretty mindless. It's just kind of a button mashing type of combat style where you start pressing buttons until something happens, and surprise, surprise, it normally works, and honestly, that is not that good of a thing. And it also really doesn't help that compared to the rest of the Guardians, Peter Quill is pretty weak. And I understand that that was the point that they were going for because they wanted to make it clear that Peter Quill could not do this without his team. It's just compared to everyone else, it bothers me that we have to play as the weakest Guardian, and this guy probably takes the most amount of time to kill a single enemy. I do want to be clear. I don't hate the combat. I actually think the combat is quite passable, but it is also objectively the most flawed part of the game. Really, any type of gameplay in this game is rough. Platforming is in this game. It's not good. And and the puzzles in this game are not that good either. They all involve you using your visor to find the highlighted piece, then you have to knock it down with your guns, get the Guardians to do something, or in the worst puzzles, you have to freaking guide the electrical circuit around by changing its flow and stuff. I have seen those in so many games. I hated those in every other game I played, and I do hate it here in Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a few other smaller issues with Guardians of the Galaxy as well, and those honestly just kind of range to bugs. I remember there being a bunch of bugs on my PlayStation 4 playthrough of Guardians of the Galaxy when it first came out, and admittedly on my Series X, this one is not nearly as bad, but the same issues that I experienced on my PlayStation 4, some of them are still kind of here. I noticed some lips not syncing properly, I noticed some music not being in certain scenes, nothing necessarily that's game ruining, but when it happens, it is very noticeable. Yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy tries to tackle a lot, and yes, it fumbles the ball on some of the ideas that it offers. However, Guardians of the Galaxy is a game that truly wanted to succeed at one thing. And this single thing is easily the best part of this game, and it's the story. Everything surrounding Guardians of the Galaxy's story is masterful. Presentation, performance, writing, story choices, all of it goes so much harder than it had any business going. I really don't think it's a stretch to call this game one of the strongest video game stories currently in the industry. Just from a presentation level, Guardians of the Galaxy is still one of the best looking games of this generation. Environments are packed with detail, visually gorgeous, and bursting with so much color. This is a screenshot game for sure. And it's not just the environments. The designs of the characters are also on point. The characters in this game emote so well that when comedy and especially the drama hits, it hits hard. And that leads me to easily the biggest thing that you will notice about this game's story, the writing and the performances. The actors and actresses of Guardians of the Galaxy, every single one, is giving this job their frickin' A game. These actors clearly pay homage to the MCU characters, but since the game dives so much deeper into the backstories of these characters, they are given significantly more depth, and thus the actors and by extension the Guardians have much more to work with in terms of character. Like take Drax for example. He isn't just played for comic relief like in the MCU. No, in this one, he's a tragic man but still has the comedic relief because he's not an idiot, the man's just really literal. Or Gamora. Gamora is more than just the daughter of Thanos. She's snarky, kind of geeky, but still haunted by not just Thanos, but the horrific things that she had to do to her own family. The Guardians in this game have so much character, so much personality that I would argue that these are the definitive representation of the Guardians in visual media. And yes, I do mean better than the MCU. Not to talk shit to the MCU Guardians of the Galaxy, I do think that they do a good job as well, but their characters are clearly just the surface level of what those characters actually go through and their backstories. The Guardians of the Galaxy in this game, because it's significantly longer, allows you to go more in depth, and that just makes them so much more compelling. Peter, Rocket, Drax, Gamora, they are all exceptionally written and exceptionally acted. Their conversations and dialogue throughout the game didn't feel like forced banter between NPCs. No, it felt real, like actual people having a conversation, or just people bickering, or just people shooting the shit and having a laugh or two.
I have been told I have an angry thinking face.
Did Rocket say that?
No, it was Hovat, my late wife.
Oh, sorry.
He used to compliment my contemplative scowls. She found them very arousing.
All right, I'm out of here.
But then, when the game needs to get serious and dark, these actors almost shockingly hit the dramatic beats, in my opinion, harder than the comedic ones. No, seriously, as funny as this game is, and yes, it is very funny, I should mention that a little more, like the game's comedic timing is legitimately really good, there are some absolutely heartbreaking moments in this game. So I'm going to go into some spoilers for a scene in Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't worry, it's not a big like main scene in like the main story or anything, but it is an optional scene. And it's an optional scene that absolutely blew me away the first time I saw it, because it's essentially just Drax and Peter Quill having a pretty damn deep conversation about the people that they lost. And up to this point, we really haven't had moments like this. But this was the first part of the game that really made me take a step back and go like, damn, they're actually going there. And it says a lot that one of my personal favorite scenes in the entire game is optional. That says a lot.
Yes. To feel close to them. Speak to them. Perhaps you think that sounds foolish.
No, not at all. You know, on Earth, a lot of people think that good people go to heaven and are reunited with their loved ones when they die.
This heaven sounds pleasant.
Yeah, it does. Thinking of her there, my mom, in heaven, it got me halfway through the war.
Oh my God. I think it's genuinely the best performance of this. Well, no, that's not true. It's definitely one of the best moments of the game. The best performance of this game is easily from Gamora. Kimberly Sue Murray absolutely kills her role in one stellar scene, but that scene I'm not gonna give away. But the point is, everybody in this game acted their asses off. So they all do an excellent job, but you can't give praise to the performance without talking about how incredible the writing team is and how they went above and beyond to not just make the Guardians feel alive, but really making an entire universe that feels lived in, dense with genuine history that hardcore comic bookers will know off the bat, while newcomers can come in and piece it all together through the dialogue and the many hidden collectibles. I just really respect that in Guardians of the Galaxy, this is not an introduction to the universe. Well, okay, yes, I mean it is, but not in the way that I was expecting the game to go. Guardians of the Galaxy literally drops you in the middle of the conflict, and it's really only the main story that's the introduction to what's already happened. Like, I love that this game establishes the Marvel history, but tells you if you want to learn more, it leaves it up to the player to go out and discover. And if that player does, then he's treated to a deep universe with an almost shocking amount of lore that includes several Marvel characters that, of course, we're gonna be familiar with. Mantis, Adam Warlock, Lady Hellbender, Nikki Gold, the Tesseract is visible. several different nods to Asgard, Howard the Duck, Lila the Otter, and then with all that, the actual backstory included a giant war that included Thanos that basically left the galaxy shaking, and as of now is still recovering from it. And ironically, in some way, shape, or form, all 5 of the Guardians were associated with this war. Guardians of the Galaxy is so rich with backstory and lore. And more importantly, it actually respects the intelligence of the player. It doesn't spoon feed you the information, it gives you just enough to go off of, then through character moments and interactions, lets you slowly piece together the full story on your own, and I just think that is great. The game even does something that frankly it didn't have to do, and make this kind of a build your own adventure game. During certain moments of the game, you are presented a choice to do this action or this action, and depending on what you pick, there will be some genuine consequences for your actions. Again, nothing major. It is all gonna lead to the same cutscenes and the same ending at the end game of Guardians of the Galaxy. But how you get to that same ending can be different, and I greatly appreciate the fact that the writers decided to add something that frankly didn't have to be here, but something that still really works. Now, if there is one issue I can point at regarding the story, the very ending does kind of drop the ball. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to go deep into the ending. You know, I do still care about spoilers, but the ending kind of feels ham-fisted and out of nowhere. Not necessarily enough to ruin the game, of course, but I could have been without that part. But yeah, the story of Guardians of the Galaxy slaps. And honestly, that's huge. Coming directly off the heels of Avengers just 1 year after its release, then to still hold its own against a bunch of other admittedly fantastic single-player narratives is really nothing to scoff at. And frankly, it's a very pleasant surprise. And that sentence right there sums up Guardians of the Galaxy. A pleasant surprise. Everyone, including myself, expected this game to fail, but it came, it saw, and it defied all of the odds. It manages to not only tell an effective superhero story packed with comedy, drama, lore, and surprisingly deep themes of grief and tragedy, but it also manages to do that without ever feeling too similar to the MCU, making it feel both familiar and unique. Guardians of the Galaxy is flawed beyond belief. This is no masterpiece, but it's also the textbook definition of they did not have to go this hard. But 3 years later, I can't be happier that they did, because Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy still holds up phenomenally well. It's become one of my favorite superhero games and one of my favorite story games of this generation. And now all we have to do is wait for the sequel and hope it manages to one-up the incredible foundation that Guardians of the Galaxy has managed to lay down. And that was my review of Guardians of the Galaxy. If you haven't played Guardians of the Galaxy, you are greatly missing out, and you are doing yourself a disservice by not playing this game. Please go give them some money so we can convince these people to give us the sequel that we deserve. But that was my review. Thank you so much for watching. The next video is going to be another why I'm buying, this time for Visions of Mana, another game I'm really excited for. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, follow me on Instagram. That's @TheGamerCritic. Be good people, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, peace.